Every once in a while, a game comes along that, for one reason or another, it just clicks with you. It's just so refreshing. You find it to be so incredible that it reminds you why you're a gamer. There are lots of good games, don't get me wrong, but oftentimes we find ourselves playing a game and then just sort of fizzling out. We're like, it's good, I'd like to get back to it someday, but we know in the back of our minds we never will. Stellar Blade was a totally different experience from many of the good or even great games that are out there. At least it was for me. For me, Stellar Blade was a game that kept me captivated, at least after I got over the initial hump of learning how it works. You see, I have a tendency to be too judgmental on a game that is difficult while I'm still learning the mechanics of the game. Once I got the hang of Stellar Blade, I could not stop playing it. In fact, once I finished the game, I immediately started playing it again. I had to get everything there was in this game. Stellar Blade was in many ways a first for me. Obviously, not the first game I've played. I've been playing games for so long that I can distinctly remember sitting in front of the TV at my grandpa and grandparents' house with my uncle there showing off his Atari, and I was playing Burger Time on the Atari 2600. Obviously, that predates many of you, but it's an experience I had. Most of my memories are from the NES and beyond, but I've been a gamer for a long time, and Stellar Blade was a first for me. It is the first game where I have ever gotten all of the achievements. That's right. I platinumed Stellar Blade. I have never platinumed any other game on any PlayStation. I've never gotten all the achievements for any game on the Xbox platform. I have never gotten all the achievements for any game on Steam. Despite having literally owned well over 1,000 games throughout my lifetime, I have never achieved all of the achievements available in the game. Stellar Blade was different. I played it through start to finish 3 times, achieving all the endings, getting all the cans, getting all the outfits, except for maybe a few of the different color variations. I think I have them all. I even did all the stuff that there is to do in the patch, including the challenge mode where you defeat the 19 primary bosses and get a special outfit. Now, yes, I know, for some of you, that's not a big deal. You've platinumed or maxed out achievements for a lot of games. Your PlayStation account, Xbox account, or Steam account shows you to have maxed out achievements on a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen games or more. But you have to understand something. I've never been one to do everything there is to do in a game. If a game had many games in it that you didn't have to do, I virtually never did them. I am known for hating fishing minigames, but you know what I did in Stellar Blade? I fished the heck out of this game. Not gonna say I love the fishing minigame, it's okay. I actually put it into the easy mode using the accessibility options, but I had to do the fishing. Do you know why? Because an outfit was attached to the fishing. I'm Fox, and this is your stronghold for rational, reasonable, real gamers. Let's roll the intro.
You make me want to be a better man.
To give you an idea of how much I like Stellar Blade, I'm a huge fan of the Dark Souls series. I love the original Dark Souls. I have literally put thousands, yes, you heard that correctly, I'm not exaggerating, thousands of hours into the first Dark Souls game across Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam. I've played so much of the PvP. I have played that game from start to finish so many different times with so many different builds. I have multiples of those playthroughs available on this very channel. And yet, I still have not gotten all the achievements for Dark Souls. And yet, I did for Stellar Blade. Now, maybe I'll start doing it more with games in the future. I just might. Not necessarily PlayStation games, but maybe more Steam achievements. It did feel good to actually max out the achievements for the game. Didn't really achieve anything more than just, well, there you go, a digital trophy, but it kind of felt nice knowing I achieved something. So why? Why did I do all this for Stellar Blade when there are so many other amazing, near masterpiece games out there? Well, part of it is probably pretty obvious. obvious. Stellar Blade features a stellar-looking woman, and you can put her in a variety of outfits, and that's a huge encouragement to go out there and get more of the outfits. You don't just look different while you play, you get to see a hot, attractive, fake female in a video game looking good in a variety of different outfits. It's the same reason I like seeing my girl wear a variety of different outfits. She looks amazing in a whole lot of different outfits, whether she's wearing a lot or wearing a little. I won't get too deep into that. Now, people can laugh or mock or use weird terms that I've just now learned, like Coomer. I didn't know what that meant before Stellar Blade. But in the end, there's nothing wrong with guys liking the appearance of a digital woman who mostly looks like a real woman. In fact, her body is based on a real Korean model, but you already knew that. In fact, everyone knows that by now. Any red-blooded man should like to see attractive women, whether they're real women in real life, whether it's women on a digital camera recorded and uploaded to the internet. That is essentially a fake woman in the sense that it's a pixel approximation of the actual woman in real life. And so in like manner, Stellar Blade's Eve is also a pixel approximation of a woman. The face is completely fake. It's not based on anyone that we know of, but the body is based on a real model. And that makes this woman appear just to be that much more realistic. Yes, she's fake. No, I have never once pleasured myself to Eve, and honestly, I'm not sure any man actually has. Perhaps there are 1, 2, maybe 5 men out there in the entire world who have, but if any man is finding Eve attractive, I highly doubt they're going to use Eve in the game for that purpose. Come on now, that's just a stupid insult. And to recycle an old joke, I think a better name than Stellar Blade for this game would have been Stellar Babe, am I right? Cut to commercial. But seriously though, spice appeal is not enough to get me interested in a game. In fact, it's not enough to get just about any man really that interested in a game. You see, the allure of the digital spice will quickly fade if the gameplay isn't there. And in the case of Stellar Blade, there is gameplay. Oh my gosh, there is gameplay. This game is deep. In fact, you could call the gameplay stellar. Just jump on YouTube and take a look at the sheer number of videos showcasing builds and guides and strategies and how to take down bosses. There is so much to this game, I could not cover it all without going well over an hour. You have basic dodges, you have perfect dodges, you have dodges where you dodge around to the enemy, you have dodges where you're supposed to dodge backward and open up an attack path for using your gun. Yes, there's essentially a drone gun in this game. You can just block, you can also do parries and perfect parries. You can do all sorts of things, and you can modify how exactly you play by the exospines and gears that you equip on Eve. Make no mistake, this is not a game that you just play the same way every time through. You can play it essentially in a variety of different ways. There is even a video out there of someone who went through the game on hard mode, killing all of the bosses with just the drone gun. That's wild. I should clarify something. The game starts with 2 difficulties, which are mislabeled in my opinion. One's called Story Mode, and the other's called Normal. Let me correct this. Story Mode should be normal, and Normal Mode should be hard. So what do you call the hard mode that gets unlocked after New Game Plus? You should call that one something like Nightmare or Insane, because it gets so much harder. Make no mistake here. Story Mode is not easy. Story mode is not a button mash mode like you would think. If you go into story mode mashing buttons, you'll kill the smaller enemies, but any larger enemies or bosses, if all you do is mash the button, you will die. I've literally never seen a game where the story mode is this difficult, where the story mode challenges you to actually learn how to play. And based on the difficulty setting you choose, you can really challenge yourself in this game. This game is like a Souls game in that you can sort of set limitations for yourself to see what you can do and how much you can get away with. And the new boss rush mode added in the latest patch as of the upload of this video is just another way to challenge yourself to see how fast you can take down enemies without using items, without doing this, without doing that. But before we get too much deeper, we can't ignore the fact that there was a lot of controversy surrounding this game. Much of the controversy was really a non-troversy. That is, the anti-gamer propagandists from radical left-wing outlets like Kotaku were simply attacking the game because it had an attractive female. You see, anti-gamers are almost always woke, and woke people hate conventional beauty because they themselves often are not conventionally beautiful, or they see conventional beauty as attached to traditional or older standards. So in many ways, the woke want to push out the notion of conventional beauty and bring in a sort of ambiguous, androgynous new beauty. Getting into the depth of combat, well, there's a lot to it. This combat is deep and involved. You've got your light and heavy attacks, your combos, your beta skills, your burst skills, your special temporary god mode, your grenades, healing items, and the drone gun all combine into what ends up being options galore. There's so much stuff going on in this game, you will lose track of how many options you have. I found myself just sticking to a few core skills because there are just dozens of different button combinations for different combos, and some of them require different scenarios. It's just hard to keep up with it. If there were any complaint to be made about the combat in this game, it might just be that it's too complex. There's just too much to it. How often do you find yourself saying, my gosh, there's too much to the gameplay. There's too much gameplay. I have too many options. That almost never happens. But if you want to master everything there is in Stellar Blade, you're going to have to play through this game multiple times, and you're going to have to force yourself to stop using your other tried and true methods and pick up some of these other methods. You will eventually select up to 2 different exospines in 4 gears to modify or add to your combat and exploration. Some of them are more or less useful depending on what area of the game you're in and what you're trying to do. Like I said, this combat is just so incredibly deep and complex, I found myself sticking to only a few combos that worked. Basically, I picked the best, strongest, easiest to achieve combos and repeated them ad nauseum. It's also important to pay attention to the color that the enemy flashes and then the color that your sword flashes. You do not respond to the enemy flashing when the enemy flashes. You respond when your sword flashes. That was one of my big points of frustration early on in the game, is I thought you responded to the enemy's color flash. No, you respond to your sword's color flash. The enemy's color flash is just letting you know what's coming up. You wait for that sword to flash. And speaking of the sword, there are a few segments in the game where your sword is just completely disabled and you're forced to use nothing but the drone gun. And these segments felt a little bit more towards the Resident Evil side of things, even having jump scares and enemies coming around corners to grab you. Not my favorite segments, but they were okay and they did not overstay their welcome. This game can be hard as nails, but fortunately you can either move it into story mode, or if you insist on staying in normal or even hard mode, you can use a couple of fallbacks as options to make the game easier, or just to make up for some of your own mistakes. There's your drone gun, which you can use to attack the enemies from a distance, or if you've got a boss down to nearly dead, but you're nearly dead, just get some distance from the boss and shoot away safely from a distance. Yes, it's cheap, and yes, you feel a little bit low down for doing it, but you know what? You gotta do what you gotta do. There are a variety of consumables. You can use grenades to stun or knock down enemies. You can use grenades to deplete enemy shields. Oh, and did I mention that? Yes. You don't just have health in this game, you also have shields, and so does pretty much every enemy in the game. You see, some attacks will drain shields faster, and some attacks focus on draining health, but if the enemy has their shield up, you're not going to drain as much health. You see, you don't have to deplete the shield entirely to drain their health. No, the shield reduces the damage taken, but damage is still taken. So no, it's not like other games where you have to deplete the entire shield and then you deplete health. That means that you can either focus on trying to deplete the shield primarily, or just focus on trying to drain their health and ignore the shield. I found it more useful to try to drain their shield to 0 and then just really let loose with some hard-hitting attacks and combos. And not surprisingly, you have an Estus-like refillable healing item known as the Tumbler. You can expand how many Tumbler uses you get, as well as how much it heals you by collecting items throughout the game. You can also collect core items that expand your burst and beta skills as well as your health. There is a ton of stuff to find in this game. Tons of stuff hidden in nooks and crannies. There is no way you're going to find it all unless you follow a guide. I recommend your first time through the game, you don't necessarily have to follow a guide, but if you want to get all the outfits your second time through, you're going to have to find them all the first time, because there are alternate versions of most outfits the second time through the game. And if I can recommend anything, I might suggest you follow a guide to pick up all those cans, because she wears a really, really nice spicy outfit when you get all the cans. Back to the healing, you actually have more than just the tumbler. You also have a lot of consumable items for healing. Some of them heal you instantly, where there is one called the lingerie potion, which heals you over time. Why they call it the lingerie potion, I don't know, but that's what it's called. There's also even a biofield type potion item where you throw it on the ground, and as long as you remain in the area, it will continue to heal you. There's even something called the WB pump. I don't know what WB is supposed to stand for, but I assume it's welcome back, because if you die, you can use the WB pump to restore yourself back to life. That is if you die from combat. It doesn't work if you fall in a fatal pit. And there is a point at which you could actually use the WB pump twice in a single fight. That means you could die 2 times and come back both times to continue fighting. Combine that with a God mode that becomes available after you stack up enough of that God mode power, and all the different healing options, and you'd think, oh my gosh, Fox, there's no way I could die in this game, right? Well, you'd be wrong. If you select either normal or hard mode and you're not playing well, you'll exhaust all of your healing and revive options and simply die. Some of the bosses in this game will really try your patience. And in a few cases, there are some instant kill maneuvers, which make for a very challenging fight if you get hit by one of those. Unlike many Souls-like games, your accumulation of special points for your abilities is entirely separate from the currency, which is simply gold. But you will find yourself amassing so much gold, it'll be ridiculous. I had well over 100,000 gold by the end of my first playthrough because I just couldn't spend it all. But if you find yourself dying a lot and buying a whole bunch of healing items, you may possibly exhaust all the gold, but just continue to explore, fight enemies, collect more gold, and you should be fine. And you can even equip some gears that expand how much gold you collect. But me, I just always had too much gold. Stellar Blade is very much unlike real life in that I just always find myself having too much money. I wish that were a problem in real life, but it's simply not. Hey, if you find yourself just having too much money and you don't know what to do with it, you can join my channel for as little as $1.99 a month or simply donate it to me. Although I highly doubt most of you have just way too much money. But hey, it was worth a shot. And as you're roaming throughout this world collecting items, you'll encounter some treasure chests. There are 2 main different kinds of chests, one that typically is locked and requires more effort to open, and another one that, although it can occasionally be locked, is usually not, and you can just open it very easily. The smaller chests that you find throughout the game are interesting in that Eve just walks up to them, kicks the shit out of them, and the stuff just flies out. Eve just walks up to these little chests and is like,
take that.
Kicks the shit right out of them, stuff flies up into the air, and you just collect it all. Oh, and did I mention that you should turn on auto collect? Yes, do not, and I don't repeat, do not make yourself have to click the button constantly to collect all the items. There's no reason not to collect everything in this game. Just turn on auto collect in the menu and collect it all. Oh, and while we're talking about menu, make sure you're in the performance mode. You want this game to run at the highest frame rate possible. Frame rate is king in any action game, especially one where timing is important for parries and dodges. Higher frame rate is better gameplay with more responsive controls. That's just the way it is. And then the bigger treasure chests, so those are kind of fun to open too. She may not kick the shit out of them, but she struggles a little to get them open, and it's, I don't know, I kind of enjoy watching her open these treasure chests. I don't know why, it's just fun to watch. Ah yes, bottom. Definitely bottom. And graphically, Stellar Blade is stellar visually. It's an amazing looking game with some incredible vistas.
Wow, what a view.
The sound effects pair so well with the graphics, the visual effects, the movement, the animation, the way everything glitters. Some stuff is shining. The lighting is absolutely incredible, particularly in dark areas where the drone functions as a sort of flashlight. This game looks stellar. It sounds stellar most of the time. Some of the sound effects come through a bit too quiet, but I find that in a lot of games. Now, the fishing in this game was quite buggy when I played the game. I haven't done the fishing since the update, so I can't say whether they fixed it or not, but there were many times where when you pull something up, you're supposed to see the image of the fish or object hang in the air, but occasionally that wouldn't happen. You would get right to the point where it would show you what you caught, and then it wouldn't show you what you caught, but it would tell you what you caught. Like it's just missing the final frame of that. There were times where I'd catch a fish, it would show you the screen where it's up in the air, you can see the still photo of it, then it'd just get stuck there. Like it's just stuck. It won't go away. It's floating in the air, suspended. And a final bug that really confused the heck out of me is occasionally I'd be fishing, I'd catch a fish that was necessary for a previously completed quest, and it would trigger the quest again, asking me if I wanted to go back to the quest giver, which was usually the message board. If I did say yes, I'd go back to the message board, but the quest was already finished. All of these bugs happen multiple times, so they weren't just off-the-cuff weird things that happen once. Speaking of the message board, there are a lot of side quests in this game. Not as many as some other games, but just enough to feel like it's plenty. Many of the quests are pretty boring, a bunch of fetch quests, and there's even the played-out Find My Missing Cat quest. Yes, I remember playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and thinking, please don't be a Find a Missing Cat quest, and of course, there was. Some of the quests are actually a lot more interesting. There are some mysteries in this game that are not resolved even if you finish the entirety of the game. You're left wondering, wait a minute, who did that? Well, wait a minute. What's the resolution of this quest? You're just not going to know, at least not yet. And doing all of the side quests will reveal more of the main story, so they're not all just throwaway little side piece things. No, some of them are relevant to the main storyline of the game. The game starts out in the demo area, Eidos 7, which is pretty linear and feels more like a linear Dark Souls style level. There are shortcuts, verticality, and there's even platforming. We'll get to that later. However, this can be misleading because once you get beyond the first initial linear levels of the game, you get to an open world segment. There are 2 of these open world segments, and they are quite large, filled with a ton of stuff to find and interact with. Bosses, treasure, outfits, quests. There's all sorts of stuff to be done in these 2 areas. But guess what? They're entirely optional. Once you get to these open world areas, you can just run to the next main storyline area and basically skip them entirely. I highly recommend you don't do that unless you're on a second or third playthrough and just looking to blaze through the game, because there is a lot to be done in these areas, and it's not bad at all. It's pretty fun. I think I had most of my fun in these open world areas. Not to say the linear areas aren't good too. Now, the world overall is a bit of a mishmash of what seem to be different cultures and languages. It doesn't represent any specifically known Earth culture, but it is based on Earth cultures. It's supposed to be Earth, but you won't recognize any parts of Earth in it. There's Russian language, English, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and I believe other languages. There are statues which appear to be Greek or Roman. There's stuff that appears to be from other cultures, Asian cultures. It's as if all the different cultures of the world got together and just built one huge, giant country, which is a mishmash of everything. Does it all fit together? Not really, but you know what? It makes for a somewhat interesting world because you never know what's gonna pop up next. I guess the developers figured, why stick with one thing? I mean, if you make your game based on Roman times or Greek times, if you make your game based just in one African country or only in North America, well, you're kind of limited in that way. You're not going to have a lot of Greek statues in North America. You're not going to have a lot of Roman statues in Kenya. But you know what? You just take a little bit of everything and throw it all in the pot. Can't say I didn't find it weird. There are some sliding/skating segments in the game which are not bad at all, but they do require a different skill set to get through. I found myself just blasting through them, running into everything, getting hit, taking damage, but fortunately on normal mode I was able to make it through okay. I can see people wanting to get good at these, but it's not the main draw of the game, and it just serves as a sort of little mini game in between the rest of the game. I will say there was one segment where there was an entirely out of place, unexpected, brutal death. Take a look.
Damn.
That's harsh. The story of Stellar Blade kept me interested. I actually watched the cutscenes in this game. Okay, part of it was just to see different angles of Eve, but still, the cutscenes were not bad. The dialogue isn't always great. Some of it was a little dry, and the cutesy girl came off as overly cutesy. But other than that, the story's pretty interesting, and it keeps you wondering what's going on. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? Who are the Naytiba, and where have they come from? Who are you fighting for, and what are you fighting for? Obviously, everything isn't as straightforward as it looks, but it may not be quite the twist you're expecting. You'll have to play through this game from beginning to end, and even then, after getting all 3 endings to the game, I'm not entirely sure how everything's connected and what exactly is going on. This is the kind of game where you can watch an hour-plus long video just explaining the story. Oh, and just the sound of collecting items in this game is so fun. It's like being at a casino. I'm not a casino guy, I don't find casinos to be that exciting, but the sound of picking up a bunch of items just sounded like all the dings and beeps and bloops that you'd hear at a casino. So I've doted on this game. I have just fawned over this game. So let me take a moment to bitch about this game. Platforming. The platforming in this game can be an absolute nightmare at times. When you're running around, if there's a tiny little railing after which is a deadly pit, Eve will, for some strange reason, love to just vault up on the railing without you jumping or doing anything but running. You're running along, you touch the railing, she decides, oh, let me vault up on the railing, fall off, and die. This happened to me more times than I can tell you. Why she would do this, I have no idea. This needs to be patched out. And beyond that, all of the other platforming can be hit or miss. You will find yourself constantly missing jumps that you felt you should have made. You will find her not latching onto things that she should. Sometimes you're jumping towards a rope and you're pointing towards it, and then you do the jump and you jump sideways. I'm pushing forward and I jump sideways. Doesn't make any sense. The platforming in this game was at times horrendous. And I'm not the only one. Synthetic Man also complained about how the platforming could just be terrible. Of course, some people out there would say,
well, Fox, you just need to get good.
Well, you know what? The developers need to get good and make better platforming. Taking a step back from the notes that I wrote for this game, I'd like to set them down and just talk off the cuff from the heart. I played Stellar Blade 3 times through. The third time I felt a little exhausted because I did it all back to back, and the third time was mainly just to get the third ending and finish off that platinum trophy. But I can tell you, Stellar Blade was an amazing, special experience for me. It wasn't just that there's a beautiful main character and that you can put all these different attractive outfits on her. It's the gameplay, the characters, the world, the way that Stellar Blade is a video game. It's a video game first and foremost over everything else. It's a video game before narrative. It's a video game before cinematics, movie-like experiences. Stellar Blade is a video game from start to finish. It never overstays its welcome. The cutscenes are all skippable except the first one. It is a game, and it is a game that reminds you why you play video games. It's a game that's just fun to play. It has a spicy, attractive female character because most of the gamers playing this game are going to be male. And most of the female gamers who play this game like that power fantasy of being a strong but spicy, attractive female. This is a game for gamers. And as I played this game, there were so many absolutely amazing moments, shocking moments, surprising moments, thrilling moments. It's just something special from start to finish. What Shift Up has done is craft an experience in a video game that takes no shame in being a video game that appeals to gamers. And that's what's so refreshing. It doesn't try to be a movie in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't try to be woke in any way, shape, or form. It is a game. It is a video game. And there was one moment in this game I have to talk about, and I'm going to show you. And it may spoil a little bit of the story, but not really a lot. I'll just give you that warning. You'll see something that you'll see later on in the game, but not something you wouldn't expect eventually to happen. There was a moment in the game when Eve is progressing up on the space elevator. Yes, an elevator that goes up into space. This is a real idea, by the way, that people have floated. And as Eve is progressing up this space elevator, you get to this period of time where you get a break from all the fighting. You're in a safe area. There are no monsters here, no Natibas here. At least you don't think there are, right? There are no Natibas here. And as you're in this area, there's an NPC you interact with in a very calming manner. And she asks if you want to see outside. And they lift up these sort of metal curtains that slide up. And as these metal curtains open up, you see this incredible vista of Earth down below, of space above. You're flying upward at an incredible pace, blowing past the various structures of the space elevator. And as this happens, the crescendo of this amazing song hits at just the right time. And it may not be the kind of song I would listen to while driving around or on my personal time, but in that moment, everything that's happened in the story, everything you know you're going up to, thinking this is it, you're coming to the final conclusion. You are flying upward into space, leaving Earth's atmosphere. And bam! The crescendo of this song and the emotion of the woman singing it, it all really just comes together. It was, for me, perhaps the most powerful single moment in a video game that I can recall experiencing. I think maybe it just might be my favorite single video game moment ever.
So close to the glow, hate to life that I will hold. Now it's time to gather what's lost. Show me how stars fall down until shine bright.
And you know what? There's something else special about it too. It wasn't a cutscene. You still have control of your character. You can still walk around and jump and attack. It was all integrated into the game, part of the game, not a separate cutscene, not a cinematic. That's how incredible this was. I believe Shift Up in Stellar Blade has crafted one of the most incredible games in gaming history. And I believe it belongs on any list you make of the best games ever made. I want to thank you for joining me. I'm Fox with RealMarcFoxx. Stay real, keep playing, and never forget, yesterday's tomorrow is today's today.